Trump's deadline to Russia expired yesterday, and instead of further disparaging statements, Trump surprised the world by announcing an in-person meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two leaders are set to meet in the American state of Alaska, which has historic significance for American-Russian ties, having been purchased by the USA from Russia in 1867 before finally becoming a full state in the United States of America in 1959. While the exact location for the meeting is yet to be revealed, all eyes are now firmly on the largest American state as the world waits for the outcome of these crucial talks. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the program is Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov, President of IDC Russia and Director WHD International Board, Vice President of the BCMF. He's joining us all the way from Moscow, and last but not the least, Major General Sanjay Mesto, Senior Defense Expert, also with us on the program. Ambassador Mukherjee, I will begin with you. Well, anything can happen when you talk about Trump, when you think about Trump, when you debate about Trump. You know, we've been talking about Trump coming back into power and becoming a friend to India, but the exact opposite has happened here. What is likely to change if Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump get off on the right note? World economies could be salvaged. You know, this tariff tantrum could be negated. What do you think, ma'am, is on the radar?
There are 2 or 3 very important indications that have come over the last 3 days. The first was when Vice President Vance had met his counterparts and national security advisors, etc. of the EU, and then he said that it would be a peace agreement which would not please either side and which would not displease either side either, which reminded me of what Kissinger had written years ago when I was in university, when he had said that a peace agreement which lasts is one that displeases both, but does not displease both to the extent that they want to get out of the peace agreement, which is the comparison Kissinger did between the Congress of Vienna and the Treaty of Warsaw. After that, we had the indication from President Trump that this would be a meeting one-to-one with Vladimir Putin, which has not pleased some of the anti-Russian EU leaders who think, which is laughable, that Putin is not the equivalent of Trump. I would say it's the other way around, but that's my personal opinion. And then he said that both sides would have to give up territory. And this meeting would be followed by another meeting between President Putin and Zelensky, where he may be there or he may not be there. He may be in the background. In other words, I would figure out that being the kind of transactional person he is, he has understood that he has backed himself with regard to Russian oil, etc., into a corner. Because those whom he tried to bully, including India, have not been bullied. They have not caved in, which is not what he imagined, since he had successfully bullied both Japan and the European Union. Now he finds that if first his friend Putin, then his enemy Putin, now again his friend Putin, if he can do a deal with him with regard to territory, it would be, according to me, he would suggest freezing like the line of actual control, in which case Russia may have to give up a small little bit of territory which it has not yet been able to get back from the Ukrainians, but Russia would get the rest, which is exactly what it wants, because its strategic interests, long-term core interests, would be safeguarded, and these territories have always been part of Russia, part of Russia's literature, history, culture and civilization. If it works out, then he would have another meeting where Zelensky would be present, where he would be perhaps an outsider in the next room, waiting for the two of them to agree or disagree and then decide whether to step in or not. This would be the scenario. This is a classical scenario. In it actually demonstrates that when President Trump wants, he knows exactly how to handle it. When he goes too far, like he did with his bullying with regard to Russian oil, as far as India was concerned, etc., then he understands very quickly where he's gone too far and he tries to come back. Like, for instance, perhaps he does not want the India-US strategic partnership, carefully built up over more than 14 years, first with Dr. Manmohan Singh, then with Prime Minister Modi. Perhaps he really doesn't want to demolish it completely, because demolishing it completely is actually pushing India completely into the arms of Russia and China. Is that what he wants? Because in any case, we would refuse to give up our Russian connection. This is a historic connection. We would never give it up, and we will never ever be bullied in public. So I think that this meeting, Vineet, is extremely interesting because of these signals which are coming, which would appear to me that there is now an acceptance that Russia has won the war, and it is time to bring it to an end, so that certain things which were not natural, including the bullying of countries like India who are buying Russian defense imports and oil, will stop. And a certain geopolitical balance will be restored, which had been completely upended over the last 6 weeks, and which has given rise, whether Trump accepts it or not, to huge amount of anti-Americanism all over India, which was not there 3 months ago, and he solely is responsible for the anti-Americanism across India. When you say that why doesn't the government do a deal? The government cannot do a deal because 1.4 billion Indians will not allow the government to cave in to Trump. It's as simple as that. If he doesn't understand that, then he should listen perhaps to his charge d'affaires here in Delhi, who would tell him that. So it's time for Trump to do a deal. He needs to do a deal with Putin, who has won the war. The sooner he accepts that Putin has won the war, the better it is for Trump. Maybe then, Vineet, he can ask Putin to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Vineet.
Good points there, ma'am. Dr. Sergey, while Donald Trump is going to be meeting Vladimir Putin, he's always said that he likes Putin, he has certain influence on him, but yet he's not been able to shake off the war that has been going on between Russia and Ukraine, and he's also trying to project to the world that India is fueling this war by buying Russian oil. In India, there has never been an ill will or any animosity towards Russia. We have considered Russia as one of our dear friends. We have always bought defense products and ammunition and equipment from you. What do you think Donald Trump is trying to do at this point in time? Do you think there is a sense that he's trying to change the world order?
Namaste, good evening. Thank you for invitation for discussion. First of all, I would like to start. What is the difference between Russian dream and American dream? American dream is a success with any price. Russian dream based on the vision, happiness for all nations. It's not a small or big nations. Actually, all nations are equal. And even if you look to the Russian word love, любовь, this is an abbreviation. Each letter of this word meaning, if you translate, that peoples who can understand and deeply realized love. That is the meaning of that is the core actually of our civilization. Right now, come to the point. Of course, Alaska is a very famous place because it was a trade deal between Russia and America before, during our kingdom. And that is a favorite word of Donald Trump, deal. Right now, he wants to complete this deal. Because, frankly speaking, Donald Trump, he is a billionaire, he is a businessman, entrepreneur, and he achieved whatever can achieve. But still in his mind, in his mindset is this main reference is a success, more. And I can realize that he want to be like a monument in the history, in the modern history, in the future, that he achieved everything, but he not receive a Nobel Prize. And he did a lot of very successful deals between Iran and Israel, between India and Pakistan. Everything he achieved, not only a Russian-Ukrainian conflict. That's why his motivation come to the deal, especially this place was chosen because it was a very successful deal for America. Alaska, when Russian king actually deliver this territory, this land to America, it was very small price. After deal, they recovered gold in Alaska. It's a very famous historical fact. It was a booming. Again, it was like we can tell the creation of the American dream. Today you are nobody. Tomorrow you'll found some gold deposit and you'll become success. I can see right now that we have historical chance of real dialogue between West and East. We have this chance, and I'm a believer. And of course, American civilization also based on the Christian beliefs or the Christian background. Famous American philosopher William James, in his book The Will to Believe, explained that God is not a small trader; He is a big trader. Again, he used this word, trading and deal. That is in American blood. And right now we can see that Donald Trump, he is, for me, quite independent politician. Of course, he has a lot of advisors, a lot of staff who can advise to him and guide him. But finally, in his heart, he has his own idea and his dream. And we can see that it can be like dialogue between two dreams, American dream and Russian dream, real dialogue. And during this dialogue, it's not question of only of the economical level, it's a question of the future of civilization. When these two very powerful leaders, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, together will sit on the round table in the very historical place, Alaska, they can really, with open hearts, to discuss if they really have some responsibility for the future generations, if they are really peacemakers, if they are really want to achieve something according to the divine will, the God's will, it will be real, the new era. We can mark it golden era of humanity.
You're absolutely right, sir. You're absolutely right. Completely agree with you. General Mesto, while these two individuals, they will be meeting, and the potential of this meeting is unlimited. Do you agree, sir?
Absolutely. The potential of this meeting is unlimited, and the strategic outcome of this meeting is dependent on certain ground factors. Firstly, there are three important players, and the most important player in this is President Putin and President Trump. They are the two most important players. And of course, the other player, which is at a relegation background as on date, is President Zelensky. The major outcome is dependent on the first two personalities, that is President Trump and President Putin. Now let us analyze the ground realities as on date. Firstly, for President Putin, the ground realities are the basic advantage or the major advantage he has is that he has in possession 20% of the Ukrainian territory. The second thing is, what are his weaknesses? His weaknesses or vulnerabilities, I would put it, is Kaliningrad, which of course is surrounded by Lithuania and Poland, and of course also on the other side by the Baltic Sea. The other vulnerability or the strategic outcome of the Russia-Ukraine war has been that Finland and Sweden has joined NATO. And President Putin also perceives a threat that NATO has been, very active in Europe, and also now with the latest Azerbaijan and Armenia peace talks, which has been now more than 4 decades peace talks, which President Trump has been successful. it gives him also inroads northwards towards Russia and southwards towards Iran. So this has been a strategic outcome of Azerbaijan-Armenia peace talks. Now coming on to the Zelensky side. Zelensky is today the biggest vulnerability or the weakness is he has lost 20% of territory, except he has gained some minor territory in Kursk. But he has no wherewithal. I repeat, no wherewithal, no military wherewithal, no power, no strength, even with the European support or maybe even with the American support, to regain this 20% territory. And therefore, this is the most important turning point, this territory. Coming on to non-contact warfare from the Russian side and from the Ukrainian side, I think I would say it is more or less of a status quo. Yes, to some extent, the advantage is more with Russia. They have got better drones and better missiles. But even I think Ukraine has been quite successful in targeting Moscow, and you have also seen they have targeted their bombers which were deployed way back, way in depth in the Russian territory. So basic thing is this 20% territory, which is the point of contention. Now let's come on to President Trump. President Trump, his aim is very, very clear. He wants to end this war, and this was his, he had announced even during his election campaign. And if he can achieve this, he will go down in history as one of the presidents who has been a man of action and has been able to stop this war. So therefore, what was his strategy? His strategy was first to, tighten Zelensky. You are aware what happened in White House, and of course, thereafter he withdrew some aid and forced him, and thereafter Zelensky did relent, and they have signed this treaty of, for the mineral deals. Now coming on to President President Trump, as with Russia, he has tried everything. Steve Witkoff and talks in Saudi Arabia and talks in Istanbul, nothing much has happened. So therefore, he also tried this economic sanctions, and he had given this 10 days deadline which just expired on August 8th. And suddenly he came up with this option of Alaska peace talks. Now what is his intent? Intent is he has given an advantage to Putin to sit down and now resolve this issue once and for all. And what would be discussed between the two is swapping of territory. And what I perceive, this is my perception, that eastern Ukraine, basically comprising the Donbass area of Luhansk and Donetsk, this perhaps will be agreed upon mutually that this can be retained by Russia. Crimea will be recognized by United States, and maybe Zaporizhia and of course Kherson, that may pass on to the hands of Ukraine. Possibility exists. Now, if President Putin does not relent, let me tell you, this is a chance he'll give him. Then President President Trump will take a U-turn or a total different swing in a pendulum. Right now he's on to the left, he will go right. Thereafter, I think he will give full support to Ukraine, full support to Europe Union or the NATO, and thereafter I think he will arm Ukrainians, and therefore the non-contact warfare will continue. On ground today, I think
Fair enough, sir.
Russia does not have the wherewithal in terms of troops to keep expanding and capturing more territory. So it's going to be a long-drawn war both for Russia and for Ukraine. Does it augur well for Russia and Ukraine? The answer is no. So therefore, I am quite optimistic that this time in this talk, some kind of negotiation on territory of swapping will be done. And once that is decided, in the next talks in Russia, perhaps maybe in Vladivostok or wherever it is, I feel some kind of a give and take is the possibility. And if that does not happen...
Fair enough, sir. We have run out of time, but appreciate all our guests who joined us and weighed in for this important meeting between these two world leaders.